Backlash against the presidents of three top universities is growing over their testimony on Capitol Hill about anti-Semitism on college campuses.
Lawmakers questioned them for hours during a House hearing earlier this week. Last night, Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff said the presidents of Harvard, MIT, and the University of Pennsylvania, quote, lacked moral clarity, end quote, in their responses. During the hearing, they would not explicitly say whether calling for the genocide of Jews would necessarily violate their codes of conduct.
I am asking, specifically calling for the genocide of Jews, does that constitute bullying or harassment?
If it is directed and severe or pervasive, it is harassment.
So the answer is yes.
It is a context-dependent decision, Congresswoman.
It's a context-dependent decision. That's your testimony today. Calling for the genocide of Jews is depending upon the context. That is not bullying or harassment. This is the easiest question to answer yes, Ms. McGill.
CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killion joins us now. Nicole, this hearing took place on Wednesday. It is Friday, but it is still in the headlines. People are still talking about it and actually talking about it arguably even more now. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, well, I think hearing from the second gentleman just last night on this issue who questioned the moral clarity of these university presidents certainly raises this to another specter. Add to that, you've had a number of business leaders from the CEO of Pfizer on down criticize the responses from this hearing to many lawmakers who are even calling for, in the case of Penn's president, to be terminated. So because of those very prominent calls, that is what is keeping this in the headlines. Although I would note, even just today, the president of Harvard has now since apologized for her remarks to the Harvard Crimson, which is the local student newspaper there on campus, saying that she kind of got caught up in the moment and should have answered the question better.
Well, Nicole, House GOP Conference Chair Elise Stefanik has criticized the university presidents in the wake of their testimony, and she's also announced an investigation into the three universities. So what can we expect from that inquiry?
Well, keep in mind, even though Congresswoman Stefanik is the one who announced this investigation, this will be something that will be taken on by the House Committee on Education and Workforce, which is the committee that conducted the hearing earlier this week. And basically, this investigation will focus on the learning environments at these respective universities, Harvard, University of Pennsylvania, MIT, and others, also taking a look at the policies of the universities and their disciplinary procedures. This is going to be a panel and an investigation that will include subpoena power, so this is likely to continue for some time.
Yeah, Nicole, you mentioned that President Gay apologized to the Harvard community. I'm also seeing, though, the Harvard Crimson, the students it doesn't sound like are necessarily accepting that apology. As these university presidents are trying to walk back their remarks, is it likely that they may face additional consequences?
I mean, that is something we are certainly monitoring. Obviously, we know in the case of University of Pennsylvania, for example, the members of the Board of Trustees for that school held an informal virtual gathering yesterday that was not previously planned. And we have learned from sources that there are expected to be some conversations with the board and with President McGill about her future in the coming days, although a university official told me that as of now, there is no board plan for an imminent change in leadership, but clearly many of these university presidents remain under fire.
Nicole, I'm also wondering if there's anything that these presidents can do at this point to try and lower the temperature on college campuses. We know that there have been increased incidents of not only anti-Semitism, but anti-Muslim harassment that has been taking place across the country.
And that is something that they all tried to address in the hearing as well. I mean, look, this is not an easy task in this current environment. And I think the line that they tried to toe is that, while certainly there is no place at their universities for anti-Semitism, anti-Semitic rhetoric, at the same time, they do have an obligation to preserve free speech and the free exchange of ideas. But again, that is a very fine line to toe, particularly in this environment with war still still underway between Israel and Hamas. And there have been some real incidents that have occurred on campuses. You know, many college students, I spoke to several this week who, talked in detail. One student in particular who told me, for instance, at UCLA that she has seen some students get death threats. She has seen swastikas carved into trees. You know, I talked to a student who was at the hearing earlier this week from Harvard who talked about a demonstration that occurred at a library on campus, and many of the people participating in that demonstration were not from Harvard, and many Jewish students had to take cover and kind of ran to hide out of concern. So, it is a very tense environment on many of these campuses. We have seen many of these presidents try to walk back their statements, and now in the case of Harvard, actually come out and apologize. So whether that goes a long way to making good with their respective students and campuses, enabling them to keep their jobs, or whether it is not, and they have to step down, I think, is kind of remains to be seen. But again, certainly not a debate that is going away anytime soon.
All right, Nicole Killian. Nicole, thank you.
You bet.